My daughter had her junior prom last year, which was pretty amazing to be a part of, even though she might be the most ungrateful person on earth. I tried to enjoy myself around her demands and attitude and words and see through it. She was anxious and excited, and I knew that none of it was personal. It was truly wonderful to be there, and I know that later on in her life, after the bitch wears off, she'll remember how I cried. She, of course, yelled at me to stop really loudly, and what I can only assume was an attempt to embarrass me in front of the whole town, but whatever. I wasn't embarrassed, I was proud to be bawling. I was happy to be there because that moment was on my list. When my daughter was 4 years old, I attempted to take my own life. It had become unbearably painful, and I could not stop hurting myself and others. I did not know what was happening, but I was pretty sure I was the victim of life, and I wanted it to stop. I had probably a couple of diagnoses at this point, as well as non-compliance with medication that should not be mixed with alcohol. I reached my end one night after something insignificant that I had blown out of proportion, and I was ready to die. I was, of course, intoxicated and sobbing because it was 2 a.m., and there weren't many nights that I wasn't. That night, I was feeling overwhelmed and unable to climb out of the rubble. I downed a bottle of pills, and I sat down to write some letters to family. I wanted everyone to know how I felt and how sorry I was for all of the things that I was going to miss. I wrote a very long and guilt-ridden letter to my parents, and then I started a letter to my daughter. This letter read much like a list because there was so much of her life that I would be absent from. I apologized that I would not be there for her first day of school. I was sorry that I would not be around during the changes in her life and body when she needed me the most. I begged her to forgive me for missing prom and graduation, her wedding, and the birth of her babies. I added these things to the list, and I tried with all my might to believe that I had no choice in leaving. I convinced myself that I was not worthy of these beautiful moments with her, and that my presence was not necessary. Depression is a lying bitch, and without defense against her, I was open to all suggestion. I was a loser and a terrible mother, and I couldn't show up. I was a waste of oxygen. Self-Pity City is a dangerous place to visit, and I was living there. So I continued my list, and it saved my life. It was while I scratched paper with pen and made that beautiful list that hope found me. In that tiny room, surrounded by the mess that I had made of my life, it was in that list that I found strength. A tiny part inside screamed that we should be there, that we wanted to be there, and I began to fight for my life. I asked for help for the first time, and I received it immediately. I didn't feel worthy of it, but I accepted it on behalf of my daughter. Many things have occurred since that amazing moment. I got sober. I took action to make my circumstances better, and I learned how to take responsibility for my life. I began to surround myself with people I admire, and I trusted them to help me be a better woman and a better mother. I started to practice the changes in behavior, and I started to feel better. Hope was restored, piecemeal, and I was able to build a life for myself and for my daughter. So on the day of her prom, I cried. I cried for the woman that didn't know how precious that moment would be and almost missed it. I cried for the list and the joy of being able to cross off one more beautiful event because I was there. I was not embarrassed. I was grateful, and I yelled back at her, "So what? I'm crying because I love you, and I don't care who's watching." And I didn't. Thank you.